just to let you know, the Outer Space Treaty was signed in 1967, and the Cold War was going strong. The race to the moon was on, and the President Johnson had asked a Supreme Court Justice, Arthur Goldberg, to please resign and go become the UN ambassador in 1965. So that was who was the chief negotiator for this treaty. And so as you will listen to me ruminate about all of the different ways you can interpret certain things that are unclear, and there's a couple doozies in there. Um, it's I kept thinking, but there was a Supreme Court justice negotiating this. If it says this, it must be deliberate. So it's a little hard on me as a lawyer, but there you go. Anyway, the next slide, please. I just want to share some of the rules of the road that we lawyers try to employ, at least theoretically. And the first one is that when you're reading a treaty or a law or regulation, the plain language governs. The drafters are supposed to say what they mean and mean what they say. And that's what should be written down. And that, of course, is easier said than done. So you're going to find things in any law or treaty that are ambiguous. And that's when courts get to go look at, when they're trying to figure out what it means. That's when they get to look at the negotiations, or they try to discern the intent. This is really hard without, telepathy and time travel and other science fictional elements. So it really is best to stick with the language in the document, but nonetheless, it is necessary on occasion. And in that regard, I did go look at the Senate ratification hearings that lasted days, where the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretaries of State, and the Undersecretary of Defense, Ambassador Goldberg himself, all testified to the Senate about the treaty before the Senate voted to ratify it. Now, the other element at play in international law, there's treaties and there's customary international law. And when you have a treaty, you're good. Like here we are. We know what we've got because someone wrote it down. Hooray! But when you have customary international law, you might be looking at something else. You're going to look at, centuries of, naval practice. Oh, we've got this 12-mile territorial sea thing down that when we're pretty sure about that, and that's good. Everyone follows it, and we all think it's a rule. So customary international law in the treaty context, though, can apply if the treaty is silent about something or if it contains undefined terms. And boy, does the Outer Space Treaty contain undefined terms. You look at whether there's a general practice, what people call state practice, and whether they're engaged in the state practice because whether these countries think they have to. So that makes certain things really hard, like inactivity. Well, we don't have bases on the moon, so that must mean we think that you can't have bases on the moon. Well, maybe we don't have bases on the moon because it's hard and expensive and, lack of political will, as the space community people always say. So, customary international law is a tool, but I personally think it's a very difficult tool to use in the context of space.